Good evening. I will call the initial convening of the District Objection Committee meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. The orders of the day are set in accordance with District Policy 2522, objections to adoption or use of instructional, library media, or reading list materials. The first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please say here when I call your name. Diane Parentella.
Here.
Christy Tankersley-Mileto.
Here.
Laura Zork.
Here.
Katie Carmax.
Here.
LaDonna Corbin.
Here.
Laura Torres.
Here.
Liz Cannon.
Here.
Carrie Adams.
Here.
Christopher Cummings.
Here.
And Maria Nasi, alternate. The purpose of the District Objection Committee is to review objections submitted by parents, legal guardians, or residents of the county for library media materials, reading lists, and district-approved instructional materials. Once a parent, legal guardian, or resident's initial objection at the school level has been denied, the petitioner's challenge escalates to a review by the members of this District Objection Committee. In the same order as roll call, kindly state your name and provide a brief overview of yourself. Ms. Parentella?
Diane Parentella, Library Media Specialist, Osceola Magnet School, District Media Coordinator, native of Vero Beach.
Thank you. Ms. Mileto?
Christy Mileto. I have one daughter in public school here. I have another going into public school here. I'm a Florida native, actually Vero Beach native.
Thank you. Ms. Zork?
Hi, I'm the mom of 3 that are in the school district of Indian River County. I have 2 that are seniors, and then I have one that's in 8th grade. I have a granddaughter that's in 6th grade, a grandson in 3rd, and a granddaughter in 1st, all in the school district. And just an active mom and a former school board member.
Thank you. Ms. Carmax?
I am a mother of 2, one in the district currently in 1st grade, born and raised through this district, been here my whole life.
Thank you. Ms. Corbin?
LaDonna Corbin. I have 3 children in the school district and 1 granddaughter in the school district. I am an active mother and born and raised in Indian River County.
Thank you. Ms. Torres?
Hi, I'm Laura Torres. I have 2 children in the school district, and I am also a native Vero Beach Floridian.
Thank you. Ms. Cannon?
Liz Cannon. I've been a teacher in Indian River County for 24 years, currently teaching reading at Storm Grove Middle. I had a daughter who went through the school district of Indian River County. She's a graduate. She graduated, and that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
I'm Carrie Adams. I've taught in the district now for about 12 years. I currently teach at Vero Beach High School. I teach English 2 and AP Language and Composition. I've had 2 children that have gone through the school district here in Indian River County and enjoy living in Vero Beach.
Thank you. Mr. Cummings?
Christopher Cummings, principal of Sebastian River High School. I have 3 children. My daughter has already graduated 2 years ago. I have a son in the 12th grade and another son in the 8th grade.
Thank you. Ms. Nasi?
I'm Maria Nashi, literacy coach at Storm Grove Middle School. I have a 3rd grader in the district here, and while I'm not a native, I am an alumni of Sebastian River High School. It's graduated the 2nd class there, and I'm very happy to be part of Indian River County again.
Thank you. So for the record, participants in person have a red folder. Within their red folder contains everything previously shared with you via board docs. On the left side of your folder, you have a simple agenda and a detailed agenda. On the right side of your folder, anything on board docs that had an attachment, those attachments have been provided for you. So next on the agenda, on February 27th, 2023, our school board approved a revised policy 2522, which you have in your folders on the right side. Objections to adoption or use of instructional, library media, or reading list materials. This policy outlines the roles and responsibilities for this committee. These procedures begin on page 2, approximately halfway down the page. Please take a moment to review, and then we will open for discussion.
We're looking at 2520 in our packet. But 2522, isn't that the one we should be looking at with the roles and responsibilities? So our packet has 2520, but not 2522. Yeah. Nope, this doesn't have the roles and responsibilities.
For that, we'll pull it up on the screen. If you can take a couple minutes, and then we'll scroll. There's not much further than that. Ms. Ort, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Great. That portion, and then we'll keep Everyone okay if we scroll a little bit? Okay. Ready? Okay. Okay. And then the last section is responsibilities. So we'll open it up for discussion after we read that, if you have any questions. Any discussion or questions from the committee members?
I do, it's Laura, I do have a question.
Okay. Well,
On section D2, where it says there will be a notice, how much notice will we be given as committee members? And then what is reasonable notice?
sure. Our policy requires a 7-day notice posting, but as we close this meeting, next steps and discussion, we know that you've invested time in this, so that would be something we would support the committee's decision as far as how much notice you would like. Great question. Any other questions?
Even if, so even if you guys have this scheduled meeting, if we have other commitments, you know, I mean, are they going to be on the same day of the week or something to that effect? You know, I mean, we do also have other commitments. What would happen?
So when we get to next steps and discussion, those are the things we need to hear from the committee members as far as, is there a better day that works? Do you want to remain consistent on a day, a time, all of those things? We would open it up for discussion then. Okay. Other questions? So Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Mitchell Herring from Sniffen and Spellman, who will provide us with sunshine law training. Good evening, Mr. Herring, you have the floor.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to share the screen here, and hopefully we can go through this PowerPoint. Okay, everyone should be looking at a PowerPoint presentation, has my name on it, Sunshine Law Training. Okay, let's start this out. So, to start out, the Sunshine Law is a law that provides a right of access to governmental proceedings at state and local levels. It applies to any gathering of 2 or more members of the same board in which they meet to discuss a matter that could foreseeably come before that board for action. There is a right to public access to these kinds of meetings, and virtually all state, local, and collegial public bodies are covered by the Sunshine Law. Now, in the context of this particular meeting, this is a committee of limited authority under the school board, given the capability of reviewing certain materials from my understanding. That means that what can foreseeably come before you is a little bit more limited than it otherwise would be. For instance, if you are discussing, I don't know, a school lunch menu, that's not something this committee can make a decision on, and it's something that could arguably be discussed between board members. The same with something like, I don't know, the construction of a new facility at one of your locations. Again, because of the limited scope of authority that this board has, or this committee has, that would not be covered by the Sunshine Laws here. Okay. Any action in which this board takes a official act is considered to be taken in the sunshine. Now, from my understanding, this board it was created and explicitly stated to be that meetings would be held in the sunshine at its creation by the school board. So this is a little redundant for y'all, but all your meetings will be held in the sunshine from my understanding. The Sunshine Law requires 3 things at its core. That is, the meetings must be open to the public, there must be reasonable notice of the meetings, and minutes of the meeting must be taken. The last 2 of these, and I believe Kyra is largely taking care of those functions for this committee in terms of making sure that the notices are posted and the meeting minutes are taken. When it comes to being open to the public, all that means is that it needs to be open to the public. You can't exclude members of the public from attending these meetings. Now, that being said, and you'll hear me harp on this a few times throughout this training, do not discuss anything that this committee might have authority over outside of one of these meetings. The reason I say that is because if you do so, that is arguably a meeting that should have been held in the sunshine, which could trigger a sunshine violation that needs to be cured at a later date by the committee. It's something that, trust me, no one wants to do, and it can be a little difficult to schedule. So, with the items that come before you, which include protests related to various materials, please do not discuss those with other board members or with other committee members outside of a publicly noticed hearing. What qualifies as a meeting, and this is pretty much what I just said, is any gathering of 2 or more members of the same board or commission to discuss some matter on which foreseeable action will be taken. Again, please do not discuss this with other members of this commission, committee. it makes life much more difficult than it needs to be.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Liz Cannon, I would like to just point out, Maria Nashi and I work together at Storm Grove.
Yes.
Where in the ELA department, we have to discuss instructional materials from time to time in the role in our job. So I'm not quite sure where the line is drawn related to this meeting.
Okay, from my understanding, the authority of your committee, and by all means correct me if I'm wrong here, is to decide whether certain items need to be removed from circulation, be it educational materials, library books, pamphlets, things of that nature. Is that correct?
My understanding, yes. I just want to make sure that we're
Okay.
not doing anything in violation of sunshine law when we have to do our job.
It's one thing to discuss the materials themselves in the context of using them in an instructional environment or maintaining them as physical items or things of that nature, and another to discuss whether or not to remove them from circulation altogether, or any given protest that's come before this particular committee. It is a bit of a line to walk here. However, it is not in violation of the Sunshine Law for you to discuss things that are inherent to the nature of your job. What it would be a violation of the Sunshine Law to discuss is, again, whether or not these materials should be removed from circulation, your opinions on whether or not they should be removed from circulation or otherwise restricted in some manner, things of that nature. Basically, this committee is organized for the purpose, again, of reviewing these protests, and that is the limited scope of what is before the committee. Did that make any sense? Sorry, I can barely see.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And by all means, if anyone needs to interrupt or if there's further questions later, feel free to send them to Kyra or raise your hand in this meeting itself. I'm here to try to make sure everyone understands what's going on. Okay, there are things that you will hear of that are called shade meetings. Shade meetings are not something that you in particular need to worry about because of the limited scope of your authority. An example of a statute that provides for a shade meeting is shown here, and it has to do with payment for legal services. There are several more kinds of shade meeting, including security concerns, such as the physical campus security type items. Those can be held in the shade at certain times. And there's one or two others that have to deal with sensitive subjects that do come up occasionally. However, given the scope of authority you have, I can't personally imagine a situation where this would come to light. In the event that it does, we'll make sure to come back and kind of give you a primer on it at that time. Public comment. These meetings are open to the public, which means that the public has a right to comment on the proceedings taking place. Now, the comment for any given action does not have to occur at the same meeting in which the action is taken. It can be held functionally at any point in time before an action is finalized by the commission. So for instance, if you're reviewing a particular book, you need to have a spot for public comment on that particular item before you make a decision as to what to recommend to the board regarding that book. There is a voting requirement. You cannot abstain from voting in regard to any decision. There are some exceptions to this, such as when there is a conflict of interest. It's not really abstaining. It's more of removing yourself from the conflict. Again, short of someone having some vested interest in the books being on the shelves, which again is kind of difficult for me to imagine. I have a hard time seeing where that situation will arise here. The short of this, though, is you cannot abstain from voting. You need to, in the context of here, provide your recommendation to the board. There's no secret ballots either. Everyone needs to know who voted on what as a member of this committee. Also, there's no voting by proxy. You, as a committee, can add to an agenda, and you can change an agenda that's already been published. This is not something that is required. However, the public does have to have reasonable notice as to the issues that will be discussed at a particular meeting. It doesn't require an item by item listing, though, necessarily. From my understanding, Kyra, are we doing agendas for these meetings? Is that what's happening here?
Mr. Herring, they will be published via board docs and noticed 7 days in advance.
Okay, this is likely to be a non-issue as well then, as the agendas will be published, and if to the extent that items need to be pushed back or changed on those agendas, they will be noticed appropriately. Minutes. The term minutes is relatively simple, and it's just a brief summary of the notes or memoranda reflecting the events of the meeting themselves. There is no requirement for a verbatim transcript. There just needs to be a record of what occurred and what was discussed at the meetings. Can the public record your meetings? Yes, they can, provided they're unobtrusive. If someone is holding up a cell phone for whatever reason to record what's going on in the meeting, that's likely to be okay. If, however, they are if they're bringing in a complete film crew and taking up 3/4 of the room, and that's causing other members of the public to not be able to attend the meeting, that could be an issue. You don't have to record the meetings. I'm not certain if you all are for these particular meetings, but there's no legal requirement to videotape every meeting that this particular commission holds. Okay. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, just as a reminder here, please, please, please be very careful with discussing these matters outside of these meetings. While it is okay to discuss matters with the public, with people not on the commission, it is not okay to have discussions about matters that are coming before y'all outside of these meetings, which need to be properly noticed and all of that. And again, thank you, Kyra, for handling that aspect of these. I understand that for at least two of you, this may be create a little bit of tiptoeing around certain subjects. However, it's provided, and I think you can fairly easily define the scope of what can come before this board. Provided you avoid those topics, there should not be any violation of the Sunshine Law. Thank you all. If there's anything else or anything in light of that, I'll open the floor once again, but otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herring. I see no questions or discussions at this time from the group. In 2022, Section 1006.29 was amended by House Bill 1467 to require the Department of Education to develop an online training program for librarians, media specialists, and other personnel involved in the selection and maintenance of library collections and materials on reading lists, We will now conduct that online training. In your folders, you have the PowerPoint for the online training as well as the transcript from the online training, if you wish to follow along.
Welcome to the Library, Media, and Instructional Materials Training. This training is to assist librarians, media specialists, and other personnel involved with the selection and maintenance of school district library materials. This training also provides assistance to reviewers of instructional materials and was created by Florida stakeholders for Florida school districts. There are 4 main purposes to this training. Part 1 discusses the criteria for the selection of library materials and the requirements of many Florida statutes. Part 2 and 3 of the training are for library media specialists regarding collection, policies, selection and maintenance of library materials, and reading lists. Part 4 for the training is to assist reviewers of instructional materials. We're going to begin with Part 1, criteria for selection and maintenance of library materials and reading lists. The primary objective of the Library Media Center is to implement, enrich, and support the educational program of the school. The Library Media Center shall provide a wide range of materials on all levels of difficulty with diversity of appeal and with the representation of different points of view. 2022, Section 1006.29 was amended by House Bill 1467 to require the Department of Education to develop an online training program for librarians, media specialists, and other personnel involved in the selection and maintenance of library collections and materials on reading lists. This is that online training. Beginning January 1st, 2023, this training must be taken annually by such persons before reviewing and selecting library materials. Library materials and materials on a reading list must meet several statutory requirements. Here and on the next few slides, we'll discuss what Florida statutes requires. Materials must be 1, free of pornography and all materials prohibited under Section 847.012 Florida statutes are not permitted in a school, library, or media center. 2, materials must be suited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material presented. And finally, materials must be appropriate for the grade level and the age group for which the materials are used and made available. While there is no statutory definition of pornography in the Florida statutes, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as the depiction of erotic behavior, as in pictures or writing, intended to cause sexual excitement. Pornography materials may not be included in a library media center or on a reading list. As stated on the previous slide, materials must be free of pornography and all materials prohibited under Section 847 Florida statutes are not permitted in a school library or media center. Florida statutes 847.012 states, an adult may not knowingly distribute to a minor on school property a picture or visual representation of a person or a portion of a human body which depicts nudity or sexual conduct, sexual excitement, sexual battery, bestiality, or sadomasochistic abuse, and which is harmful to minors. Any book, pamphlet, magazine, or printed matter that contains explicit and detailed verbal descriptions or narrative accounts of sexual excitement or sexual conduct, and that is harmful to minors. Harmful to minors requires that any description or representation of nudity, sexual conduct, or sexual excitement meet 3 requirements to be found harmful to minors. First, the description or representation must predominantly appeal to a prurient, shameful, or morbid interest. Second, the description or representation must be patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community with respect to what is suitable for minors. Reference to the adult community as a whole means extremes should not be relied upon. The community will generally mean the school community or district. The third and last requirement is that taken as a whole, the material is without serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. Materials must be analyzed in its entirety to determine whether there is any serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. No library material shall be used, distributed, or made available to students if it contains content that can meet the requirements found in the harmful to minors statute. Districts should err on the side of caution with regards to the material that is potentially harmful to minors and in violation of Section 847.012 Florida statutes. Florida statute lists the penalty for violating Section 847.012 Florida statutes. Any person violating any provision of this section commits a felony of the 3rd degree. To protect media specialists, a book that includes nudity, sexual conduct, or sexual excitement may not meet the tenets of harmful to minors, which are appeals to a prurient, shameful, or morbid interest, patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable material or conduct for minors, and taken as a whole is without serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. Please remember the violation of the harmful to minors statute is a crime. Second and third criteria, as listed on slide 6, referred to in section 1006.40, states that materials must be suited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material. Media specialists should also consider, at a minimum, the age, maturity level, and grade level of students with access to the material. Media specialists should consider factors such as the degree to which the material will be supplemented or explained by classroom instruction, the instructional purpose of the material, with priority given to materials aligned to state standards, as well as the accurate portrayal of the state's board racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and cultural diversity without bias or indoctrination. Media specialists should also consider student interests and the needs of their specific school population when choosing materials. Materials that are neither pornographic nor prohibited by Section 847.012 may still be inappropriate for students. Media specialists should always err on the side of caution when selecting materials. It is good practice to assess whether or not you, as an adult, making book selection decisions, would be comfortable reading aloud the material in question in a public meeting. If you would not be comfortable reading the material in a public setting, then you should lean towards not making the material available in a public school library for children. Some of these requirements will be addressed later in this training. The criteria for selection of library materials, reading list materials, and instructional materials is found in additional statutes. Many of the requirements are the same as in above slides. Florida statutes additionally dictate that materials adhere to several requirements listed in Section 1006.342B. This section discusses using the following considerations in the selection of library media materials: the age of students who have access to the materials, the educational purpose to be served by the material, the degree to which the material will be supplemented or explained as part of normal classroom instruction, consideration of the broad racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and cultural diversity of students of this state, and any material containing pornography or otherwise prohibited by Section 847.012 may not be used or made available within any public school. Additionally, Section 1006.282D2 requires each district school board to adapt procedures for developing library media collections. The procedures must address the following criteria. Book selection must meet the criteria in Section 1006.403D. B. Require consultation of reputable, professionally recognized, reviewing periodicals and school community stakeholders. C. Library Media Center collections based on reader interest, supportive state standards and curriculum, and the academic needs of students and faculty. D. The regular removal of books based on physical condition, rate of circulation, alignment to state standards, relevancy to curriculum, and out-of-date content. Parental rights are very important in Florida. The Parents' Bill of Rights, Section 1014.041A, Florida statutes, states that parents have the right to direct the education and care of his or her minor child. Taking this into consideration, districts must have policies in place to ensure that parents have the opportunity to review library materials, including classroom libraries, and parents must be informed of these district policies. Be aware that each school district is required to provide parents access to any book in a school library if the district receives a written request. As a reminder, a parent may access the department's parental rights page to share concerns. Please share this link with your school community. It is the responsibility of each media specialist to know their district's challenged materials policy. Section 1006.282A2 Florida statutes states that each district school board must adapt a policy regarding an objection by a parent or a resident of the county to the use of a specific material, which clearly describes a process to handle all objections and provides for resolution. We encourage districts to adapt robust policies to carefully consider objections. Districts may wish to consider including specific details about committee responsibilities and meeting timelines. Districts may also consider having an objection process in place prior to the purchase of any new materials. We have now reached part 2 of the training, where we will explore collection development policies. School districts are required by statute, section 1006.282D2, to adapt procedures for developing library media center collections and post these procedures on school websites. Library collection development can be defined as the ongoing process of systematically building high-quality print and non-print information resources to meet the information needs of a particular district or school. There are 3 main goals in collection development. A good collection development policy provides guidelines for the selection of materials for the library that are balanced. Examples of a balanced collection includes fiction, nonfiction, and the inclusion of opposing viewpoints. Collection development also provides guidelines for retention, preservation, and archiving of materials. And collection development policies describe the ongoing process of removal of inappropriate materials, including the regular removal and discontinuance of books based on criteria provided in section 1006.262D Florida statutes. Collection development policies are important as they seek to address the needs of the district, school, and community. Collection development primarily focuses on the acquisition of print, non-print, and other library materials by a trained librarian or school library media specialist for school staff, students, and community stakeholders. Collection development also involves strategies for continuing acquisition, evaluation of new materials, and the existing collection in order to determine how well a particular library serves its users. A thoughtful collection development includes improving the library's materials through the selection of materials and the deselection of unwanted information. In statute, section 1006.282D2, each district school board is responsible for establishing and maintaining school library media services for all district public schools. The school board must establish policies on selection of books and includes providing training regarding the prohibition against distributing harmful materials to minors, including stakeholders' input, including parents, and requires the consultation of a reputable, professionally recognized reviewing periodicals. While not required in statute, districts may also consider the consultation of crowdsourced reviews. We will discuss peer reviews and crowdsourced reviews in a later slide. A collection development process contains 5 categories, which are goals, audience, acquisition, maintenance, and preservation. The first category is goals. The goals section should address the mission and vision of the school or district, special program considerations, the current collection analysis, and the responsibilities of the media specialists. The second category is audience. It's important to address the specific population of the school or district by looking at several factors, including the school or district demographics, the community, the needs of the population, and in the ways in which transparency is offered to the community regarding current collection and selection of new materials. The third category is acquisition. Some questions that can be asked pertaining to acquisition are: what is the purchasing budget for the year? Will there be any additional funds from fundraisers? What are the district policies and procedures for selection of materials? Are the curriculum needs of the students and faculty being met? Are readers' interests taken into consideration? Have selections been reviewed by stakeholders? Are professional reviewing journals consulted for new purchases? The fourth category is maintenance. Maintenance considerations include the inventory policies of the district and knowing the procedures of removal of materials. The fifth and final category is preservation. During this step, it is important to consider the long-term development of the collection. District policies on preservation should be followed. Section 1006.282D2D Florida statutes states that districts must adapt procedures that provide for the regular removal and discontinuance of books based on, at a minimum, physical condition, rate of recent circulation, alignment to state academic standards, and the relevancy to curriculum and out-of-date content. You may wish to use the following questions as guidance for making removal and discontinuance decisions. Is the content outdated? Has the book circulated in the last few years? Are the materials age appropriate for the school community? Does the material include information that is biased, racist, or sexist? Is the book irrelevant to the needs and interests of the students and staff? Is a subsequent edition of the book been added? Or is there a better book that should be obtained instead? Are there multiple copies of the book available? And do they circulate? Is it material that is available in an online database? Is the book physically damaged, beyond repair, or poor quality? District cataloging software may be able to report on collection statistic data that will help media specialists to make decisions based on the age of the collection, balance of the materials, circulation data, and other important points. This report, if available, can help with your removal decisions. In order to select materials for a library or media center, a school district employee must possess certain qualifications. In addition to a professional license, he or she must be certified as an educational media specialist. A person qualifies as a certified educational media specialist in one of two ways. One way is that an individual has an undergraduate or graduate major in library science or educational media, or has a bachelor's degree with at least 30 semester hours in library science or educational media. The second way is that a certified educator adds the educational media specialist certificate to their credential by passing the educational media specialist exam. Section 1006.284F Florida statute states, school principals are responsible for overseeing compliance with the school district procedures for selecting school library media materials at the school to which they are assigned. Elementary classroom libraries are a type of school library. Materials in all school libraries must be selected by a certified media specialist. We will now discuss part 3 of the training, which is selection and maintenance of school library materials. Florida Statute 1006.282D requires that school districts must adopt procedures to ensure that library and media center collections support academic standards and curriculum, support the academic needs of students and faculty, and are based on the interests of readers. Each of these requirements is important to the creation and maintenance of a school library media center with an environment capable of supporting students in their academic pursuits and creating lifelong readers. When evaluating your collection, you may wish to ask the following questions. Does the collection meet the current and future needs of the school population and align with the curricular and instructional needs? Does the collection align with the mission and vision of the district or school? Has the collection been developed in compliance with Florida statutes, State Board of Education rules, and school district policies? Planning for the future is a best practice of collection and selection policies. As a media specialist, you should consider a 5-year purchase plan that takes into account planning for future collection needs. When choosing materials for your library media center, Choose materials that are age appropriate by taking into consideration the ages, grade levels, levels of maturity, reading levels, and special curricular needs and programs of your school or district. Materials should reflect all levels of abilities, from struggling readers through those that are advanced. Special curricular needs may include materials for English language learners, gifted learners, and the schools that may have specialized programs such as technology magnets and advanced programs. Section 1006.282D2 Florida statutes states that the consultation of reputable, professionally recognized reviewing periodicals and school community stakeholders is required. Consultation with stakeholders and professional periodicals can provide information helpful in ensuring the selection criteria set out in statute, rule, and policy are met. Professional review journals typically include a summary of the plot, an appraisal of the literary quality, and a recommended age or grade range. Best practices are to consult multiple professional review journals. While the law requires consultation of peer reviews, districts should consider the consultation of crowd-sourced reviews. When selecting new materials for the Library Media Center, the following suggestions may be considered. Make sure your collection meets the curriculum needs of your students and faculty. Survey your stakeholders for suggestions. Make sure your collection has a mix of both fiction and nonfiction. Consider the diversity and age of your collection. Make sure to address the high interest needs of readers. Use reputable book vendors. Look at award and state lists that are appropriate for your school age level, and follow all district protocols for the selection of new books. Annually, beginning after 2022-2023 school year, Florida Statute 1006.282E3 states that each superintendent must submit to the department a report that identifies each material that the school district received an objection to, and each material that were removed or discontinued as a result of an objection. The department then must publish the list of materials that were removed or discontinued as a result of an objection. Media specialists should check this list as part of their selection procedures. Book selection should take academic standards and the academic needs of students and faculty into consideration. Some ideals for gathering this information include assessing readers' interest through various methods, including surveys, suggestion boxes, and other community stakeholder input. Titles from state standards book lists such as the ELA, BEST, sample text, and the civic literacy reading list should also be considered. Evaluate the school needs to include the school mission or vision, performance or improvement plans, any curriculum needs or curriculum for specialized programs, and school population needs. Always consider any budgetary restrictions and the age of your population. Stakeholders are an important piece of the selection process. Section 1006.282D of the Florida statutes requires consultation with school community stakeholders in the purchasing of new library media materials. All stakeholders should be given an opportunity for input. Consultation can provide valuable input to assist the media specialists in making selections that not only comply with Florida statute, rule, and district policies, but to assist with the selection and maintenance of a well-rounded library collection. Be aware that the school board is ultimately responsible for materials maintained in a school library, and the school board must have procedures for the selection of materials as well as procedures for a parent or county resident to present objections. District policies for the maintenance of library media collection must be followed. Organization. Decide how materials are organized and make sure signage is clear and up to date. Availability. Inventory everything in your collection at regular intervals and delete lost items in your library management system after a certain amount of time. Know your cataloging profile, which includes how you classify materials and their corresponding prefixes. It's also helpful if barcoding and labeling is in place in the same location on all books. You should also know how your school submits MARC, machine readable cataloging records, into its library maintenance system. Repairing damaged books is a large part of maintaining a library collection. Lightly damaged books can often be repaired with basic book repair supplies such as specialized tape and mylar for book jackets. Books with mold or any liquid damage should be removed from the collection. Part 4, Instructional Materials Reviewers. This training is also designed to assist reviewers in complying with the criteria for evaluating and recommending instructional materials for adoption as set forth in Section 1006.312. This training will provide a brief overview of the requirements for instructional reviewers. There is some overlap between the selection criteria for instructional and library materials. We will start this portion of the training with the areas where there is overlap and discuss the selection criteria for instructional materials later in this portion of the training. It is important to note that this training does not replace the requirement for state and school district instructional material reviewers found in Section 1006.295. State and school district instructional materials reviewers must also complete the department's training program for instructional material reviewers. All materials in public schools, whether found in a library, included on a reading list, or in instructional materials must include considerations for the following factors: avoiding the use of any unsolicited theories or strategies that may lead to student indoctrination. Meetings for the purpose of selecting instructional materials must be open to the public, including parents, in the consultation with the school community stakeholders, including parents, is required in the purchasing of new library materials. The age of the students with access to the materials. The educational purpose. The degree to which the material will be supplemented by classroom instruction. Consideration of the broad racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and cultural diversity of students. In addition, all materials used in public school must be free of pornography and free of materials prohibited under Section 847.012 Florida statute. Instructional materials reviewers should recommend only accurate, objective, balanced, non-inflammatory, and current materials. And unlike library materials, all instructional materials must be aligned with the state's academic standards. Reviewers must also consider recommending instructional materials for academically talented students, such as students in advanced placement courses. Materials should be suited to the student's comprehension. The ability to comprehend material should consider the factors common to all materials and discussed in the prior slide. This includes the age of the students, educational purpose, the degree that the teacher in the classroom will supplement the material, and the diversity of students who will use the material. Maturity level, reading level, and material clarity are also significant. Finally, instructional materials need to be representing content at a level appropriate to student abilities. Pacing of the material must be at a rate that allows students to understand it. Materials must be easy to use and durable enough for multiple uses. The selection criteria for instructional materials include not only what must be considered and included, but materials that must not be included. Instructional materials that reflect unfairly upon persons because of characteristics which include race, color, creed, national origin, ancestry, sex, religion, disability, socioeconomic status, and occupation should not be included. On the contrary, materials recommended by reviewers should accurately portray the ethnic, socioeconomic, cultural, religious, physical, and racial diversity of our society. Section 1006.312D, Florida Statutes, was amended in 2022 by House Bill 7 to prohibit any reviewer of instructional materials from recommending materials that contradict the principles enumerated in Section 1003.423 Florida statutes. This section includes an acknowledgement that all persons are equal before the law. and lists 6 principles that instructional and supporting materials must be consistent with. Section 1003.423 Florida statutes reads, A, no person is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, solely by virtue of his or her race or sex. B, no race is inherently superior to another race. C, no person should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partly on the basis of race, color, national origin, religion, disability, or sex. D, meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic are not racist, but fundamental to the right to pursue happiness and be rewarded for industry. E, a person by virtue of his or her race or sex does not bear responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. F, a person should not be instructed that he or she must feel guilt, anguish, or other forms of psychological distress for actions in which he or she played no part, committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. When appropriate, Section 1006.312 Florida statute requires that instructional materials include only materials that accurately portray humankind's place in ecological systems, including the necessity for the protection of the environment and conservation of natural resources, and the dangers of tobacco, alcohol, and controlled substances such as drugs. Instructional materials must also demonstrate humanity and compassion by including the portrayal of the appropriate treatment of people and animals. As mentioned earlier, instructional materials must be free of pornography and material prohibited under Section 847.012 Florida statutes. Section 1006.312 also directs evaluators of instructional materials to include materials that encourage fire prevention and theft, which means using money and other resources wisely and not carelessly. Section 1006.312 further directs instructional materials reviewers to ensure that when selecting materials for social science, history, or civics courses, that those instructional materials contain the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Districts may wish to use the department's core questions rubric when evaluating instructional materials. In addition to the content rubric shown, other subjects include presentation, learning, and Florida statutes and the State Board of Education rule. The full rubric may be found on the Florida Department of Education's instructional materials website and linked on this slide. This section of the rubric titled Florida Statutes and the State Board of Education Rule discusses the rejection of any unsolicited strategies that could be seen as indoctrination or that could contain divisive materials such as critical race theory, culturally responsive teaching, social justice, and social emotional learning. Critical race theory, culturally responsive teaching, social justice, social and emotional learning, and any other unsolicited theories that may lead to student indoctrination are prohibited. Both instructional material reviewers and library media specialists should be aware of district responsibilities. Responsibility of the content of instructional materials lies with those that choose the materials. Parents that are challenging or objecting to materials should not have to prove that those materials are objectionable. Instead, the individuals that choose the materials must be prepared to defend the educational value of the materials if needs arise. Parental feedback is important, and parents should be involved in all aspects of choosing materials. The district school board oversees the final process of instructional materials after a vetting process that involves all stakeholders, including teachers, students, district staff, and community members. Districts must adopt procedures to permit a parent or resident to object to the adoption or use of any instructional material if it does not meet the criteria of Section 1006.312 or 1006.403D Florida statutes. While not a criteria for selection of instructional materials, we caution all personnel to be aware of copyright and fair use guidelines. Always follow your district policies and procedures. Thank you for attending the training program for library media and instructional materials reviewers. Your work in helping choose Florida's library media and instructional materials is a critical part of student success.
Okay. The next order of business will be to select a committee chair. The term of service shall be for 1 year. The responsibilities of the chair will be to facilitate discourse in accordance with the procedures outlined in Policy 2522. At this time, I would like to call for nominations for the committee chair.
I nominate Liz Cannon for the committee chair.
Nomination Liz Cannon, motion by
Diane
Diane
Parentella.
Parentella.
I'm
Do I have a
sorry, I did not hear that.
Liz Cannon was presented as the first nomination, motion by Diane Parentella, and we have a second by Chris Cummings.
Second that.
Okay. We're going to vote all in favor.
Aye.
No.
Okay. Can I count the votes? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. No?
I don't have a response right now. I don't know Liz or much about her, you know? I can't vote on someone that I just met today.
Should there be discussion?
I feel like there should be a discussion.
Sure.
Diane, why have you?
Well, I nominated Liz because I know that she has been a teacher in the district for a long time. When she introduced herself today, she did say that 24 years? 24 years. So I know that she has been teaching language arts. I know that she has background in reading. So that's why I nominated Liz.
I've been at the middle school level for most of those years, teaching reading, language arts, world history, critical thinking, computer science. I think there was something else, but I forgot. I am very familiar with selection of curricular materials. I've been on various curriculum committees, and formerly I spent 5 years as union president, in which I also was very much involved in curriculum decisions at that stage.
Is there discussion from committee members?
This is Laura. Well, actually, I was going to nominate Christy Melito because I feel like that as a parent and someone that's not tied to the district, that it could be a better fit for this. And I think that we need to have a clean slate going into this committee because I'm sure there's probably going to be a lot of controversy around some of the decisions we make. And I feel that with Christy being someone that has kids in the district, she's not a past union rep, she's not a past board member, not a past employee. I think that we need a fresh set of eyes on this. And I don't think that it's in the good direction to have someone from the past as chairman of this committee.
Okay, thank you for your discussion. So are we comfortable opening back up the nominations for committee chair? Or do we have additional questions? Okay. I'll
I'm
call.
just curious about the because it's a committee, are there committee procedure? I'm just curious about how committees procedurally works.
Like following Robert's rules?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and my understanding is that the board chair is merely just the one who just basically doing what you've been doing tonight.
Yes.
It's not a greater vote or not even a spokesperson for the committee. It's my understanding it is just someone who is guiding us and keeping us on task, is my understanding.
Correct.
Okay. So if I can interject here, that's why I don't see why, because I know that as even myself, if I was chair or Liz is chair, we bring our past with us. And I think that the decisions that are going to be made is going to, I think that the chair is going to have a strong voice on this. And I just think, Liz, that we just need someone new that can step up for this. And it's nothing personally against you. I just think that we can always, I know you've been on other committees, but I think it's time to have different voices that are taking leadership roles.
Okay. So after discussion, I will open it back up for nominations for the committee chair.
I nominate Christy Melito.
Okay. Motioned by okay. I am told there was a vote on the table, so we need to finalize the first nomination, and then pending that motion, we will have a second if necessary. So I will The first nomination was Liz Cannon, motion by Diane Parentella, second by Chris Cummings. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed?
I oppose.
Okay. So that motion passes in favor of Liz Cannon, 7-1. Am I correct? We do not need a second nomination, Ms. Esplin? Okay. At this time, I will hand over the meeting to Ms. Cannon to facilitate the committee's next steps and discussion. Welcome, Chairman Cannon, and I have a little script for you.
Oh, thank you. I was like, okay. Okay. Is there a specific? Okay. So, I would like to review the next steps of the committee. I would like to propose the next meeting date be May 25th at 5:30 PM. I'm looking that up to see. That is a Thursday. If there are no objections submitted by the May 10th at 5 PM, we would then select June 21st at 5:30 PM or earlier if the committee is available. And June 21st would be a Wednesday.
Take into accountability of the summer, right? Correct? You're
Excuse me?
taking into accountability the summer, because school's out May.
Yes.
So, okay.
Generally speaking, they do have, in the past, we have had committees meet over the summer. I'm going to get some clarification here. This committee meets generally if there are objections brought that have been overridden by, the principal. So if, for example, on May 25th, there are none
Sure.
in that, then that meeting would not be held.
So May 10th, the meeting is scheduled for May 25th. If 2 weeks before May 10th, we have no objections, we would not meet May 25th. We are not scheduling a meeting for the purpose of having a meeting. We are scheduling a meeting when an objection is received. So that's
So,
where if we have 2 dates.
If necessary.
Correct.
So May, the 10th would be the deadline for an objection, and then we would meet on the 25th.
Correct. Objections can come in at any time, but to adequately prepare the committee for what's coming forward, 2 weeks seems like
2
appropriate
weeks.
notice for each of you.
So I believe we would need are we looking for both May 10th and June,
May 25th.
May 25th and June 21st? So I would assume we'd need to do each one its own action? So do we have a motion for May 25th at 5:30 PM?
A motion.
So
Motion by
Carrie?
Ms. Corbin.
Adams? And I
Seconded
believe,
by Adams.
who was the motion?
Motion by Ms. Corbin.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, any discussion? I apologize. Any discussion? I think we kind of went out of order on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. At this time, if we have some members of the public present, if they would like to make any comment. Thank you. Okay. All right, and if there is nothing else to discuss, I would like to adjourn this meeting at 7:07 PM.